Live to see it, friends, and welcome to the World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. So, when does this amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey Phil, how are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Your football team won, huh?
Broncos are going to the Super Bowl. So that was a prediction for the future that I was making, and now it's not just a prediction. It's actually happening. So pretty excited about that. First time in about it's 15, 16, 17 years, something like that, that the Broncos have been. So a lot of excitement around this town yesterday and today, and for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be. It always is anyway in football season, but it's all Broncos all the time around here. I actually still had my Broncos T-shirt on earlier, and I took it off before doing the show. I probably should have kept it on, but I don't know what is that like. That's a trademarked logo. You know, we're already dealing with information. You know, IP issues that we haven't had to deal with before in this year.
From last week,
Yeah.
Some copyright troll is after us, but we'll straighten that out.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
we don't get in trouble with anybody. I assume it's okay for us to talk about the Broncos. I hope we'll see if we get any letters. Anyway,
Trademark.
exactly. Anyway, go Broncos is all I have to say on the subject of the Broncos.
Broncos.
But very excited about that. Excited about another week of half-hour long video and audio shows on the World Transformed. For those just joining us with our new format, this is our new format. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Blog Talk Radio, and you can find us at iTunes. And we're on 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. More topics, more great delving into the future. And I want to give a quick update for those who have been wondering about our book project, which is the world's longest book, The World Transformed, the abridged edition. That is well underway right now. We're currently collecting submissions from the first 99 authors. We spent a good deal of time talking about organizing that effort later part of last year. And I just want to let everybody know, since we haven't mentioned it since we've started back this year, it is an ongoing thing, and we will be giving updates. And we're looking forward to having some of the authors on once the submissions are in and once the book is getting ready to go to press to talk about their ideas. So that's another prediction for the future, another thing to look forward to in the near future. How about you, Stephen? Anything big you want to share with us before we jump into the topic of telepresence?
No. I do suggest to the right viewer to go see Lone Survivor. I saw it earlier today. Very intense war movie. That's not for everyone apparently. But you know, the language is strong as you would expect from these guys, and in a very intense circumstance. And of course, the violence is incredible. But that's when you're trying to do a war movie, it would be a disservice, I think, to the subject matter to do it any other way.
There you go.
And I think it's a great war movie, and I highly recommend it on those terms. So, anyway, yeah,
heard good things about it, but you know, we did a lot of movie talk last week, so we're going to be very tech geek this week. We've got a lot of technological type issues we'll be talking about, and we're going to be very futurist oriented without so much the showbiz this week. So, just to be thematic, and we're starting out tonight talking about telepresence. I've got a couple of interesting links on this, and we'll share those at worldtransform.com as well as in the show notes for Blog Talk Radio. And on YouTube, I guess we'll have to put it in the notes there. A couple of links, a couple of good stories over on Technology Review about the headway that telepresence is making in a couple of markets. First off, we're seeing organizations using telepresence. We've heard of this. And it's a way to manage staff at a great distance. It's a way to interact with colleagues without having to travel or even commute.
It occurs to me, Phil, that we should probably define what telepresence is. Maybe
Go ahead.
Not everybody knows.
Please do.
As you know, as opposed to video conferencing, which is what you and I are doing right now.
Right.
Telepresence is video conferencing plus the capability of moving around. Basically an RC, a robot, moving the camera and the mic around so that you can actually kind of be in that place. And it also has carries with it a screen so that people can see your face as you move around in the location that you're in. I guess the best example that some people may recall is when Sheldon went a little bit nutty and had a telepresence
I'm
robot
sorry.
in
Wait,
one of the
when did
episodes.
Sheldon ever not go nutty? Wait, when?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
This was just a, sometimes he's a little bit more off his rocker, and his mom has to show up.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
I don't think his mom actually showed up in that episode, but it was Sheldon was a little stranger than normal, and decided that to heck with the world. I'm going to sit in my room and interact as I need to with the world by way of a telepresence robot.
Right. So for
And
fans of The Big Bang Theory, people who watch this show, there was an episode where
yeah,
Sheldon's staying in his room, and what's out in the world representing Sheldon is this little robot with a monitor that has Sheldon's face on it.
right.
And as odd as
Sheldon
that
loved it.
was, what's that, Stephen?
Sheldon absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah, it was perfect.
He thought that was great.
Well, you're talking about Sheldon going crazy. I always have to go back to the line that he always uses, right? I'm not crazy. My mother had me
Mother had
tested.
tested.
Yeah, we got to give him credit. He's not crazy. It's been looked into. But that idea looks so comical in that show. But if you look at what's actually being used, I was talking about businesses that are doing this, organizations that are trying out telepresence as a way of managing staff at a distance or as a way of interacting with colleagues. It's really not all that different from what was shown in The Big Bang Theory. It's actually it's pretty similar. It's a stick figure robot that can walk around and that has a monitor, and that monitor is your face, and it has a camera, and that camera is essentially your eyes. So you're kind of there to the extent that you can move
And mine
around.
is your ears. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah, you can move around, and you can see other people, and they can see you, and it's fundamentally different from what we're doing right now. It's fundamentally different from a video conference because of that mobile aspect. Because the robot then becomes some portion of your presence. It's still not. I mean, no one's going to claim that it is the exact same thing as you being there, but it's closer because you're having this real-time interactive experience with these people, and it's occurring in space, right? It's not just a two-dimensional experience on a screen. It's occurring in the you're sharing the space that those people are in. You've found a way from where you are to kind of enter their space. It's a very interesting idea, and now it's suggested that this technology is going to be used not just for business, but that it will be used in everyday life. That this is a technology that parents can use to check in on their kids, or maybe that adult children can use to like look in on their elderly parents. It's a more effective way of spending time with people than just being on the phone. If the choice is between having a phone call with someone and having a telepresence session with them, you're more there with the telepresence session than you would be. But it's not without problems. It's not without issues. These robots apparently are, well, for one thing, they are kind of funny looking. I mean, I have never interacted with them. Stephen, I assume this is not something you've encountered so far in your professional life.
No. Video conferencing is the closest, I suppose, that I've come to that sort of thing. I've seen robots in hospitals before,
Right.
but it wasn't a telepresence robot. It was a delivery robot. It ran errands throughout a hospital in Alexandria, Louisiana. It was a
That's interesting.
yeah, it was very high tech, and it would ride the elevator, and and if you got in its way, it would stop and wait.
Right.
It was it was pretty cool. But my thought was, well, why not just hire a runner for minimum wage to do what this robot was doing? And there really wasn't a good response to that. The robot cost, I mean, it was very expensive at the time that I saw it. And,
Right.
I suppose that the price of those things will plummet over as time goes by, and I think you'll see a lot more delivery robots like that. But yeah, I've yet to see in person a telepresence robot.
I can give you the reason. I can give you the reason why it's better than the minimum wage runner.
Why?
Because cool robot. That's why. Right.
Exactly.
That's got to be the reason. Right?
It's one way to communicate to the community that we are a happening
That's right.
hospital.
That's right.
We're
Yeah.
we're up to speed with we're on the cutting edge.
Look, cool robot. Yeah, I mean, that is a message in and of itself. Absolutely, it certainly is.
I suspect that had a lot to do with that decision.
And look, cool telepresence robot is a message too, and it's the same kind of thing. I think that the companies that are experimenting with this are maybe less concerned about closing that last mile of presence as they are just being on the cutting edge of trying everything out. And they probably are dealing a lot with these issues of distance and these issues of trying to create real rapport between people, trying to create real interactions between people. And this is a new option for how to make that happen. So what happens when you do it? Well, you run into these issues that the telepresence robots bump into furniture. They bump into other people. The people who are driving them from where they are tend to be very embarrassed when something goes wrong, and then they laugh, and then people think, oh, this guy's just goofy, right? They get a bad impression of the other person, or an unintended impression of the other person. There's a lot of issues around the fact that they're not as mobile as they should be. Sometimes they break down just when you need them to. I mean, it's typical first wave of implementing technology kinds of issues that you can expect. Also, the service can fail, and that's the same as a phone call, except think about this. A phone call fails, if Skype fails, well, the screen goes dead, right? But if your telepresence robot fails, it's like you've got this dormant thing in the room that was supposedly you a few minutes ago that's now nothing, right?
Right in the middle of the path or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing I thought was interesting about, bumping into furniture and things, I mean, you got a very narrow view of what's going on in the room. So if, let's say, you and my telepresence robot are walking down a hall together, Phil, and I'm trying to, have a conversation with you as we're moving down the hall, I would move to face you, and of course I'm no longer looking where I'm going down the hall, and that's, you end up running into things that way.
Right.
It does, and if you're in a conversation with multiple people gathered around in a circle, you're having to move around to try to take in the body language of the people around you. It doesn't work as naturally as being there. But that's not even the biggest limitation that I can think of.
Which is what?
Well, you remember the Big Bang Theory episode what was the thing that stymied, Sheldon as he approached his office door? He couldn't get into his office.
Yes.
You don't have a hand.
You don't have a hand. Currently, the current versions of them don't provide a hand, right?
I think in the future, we will see telepresence robots with a hand. So you can press an elevator number or turn a knob. Simple things like that that it can really mess you up if you were trying to get to a particular space. And I think you still with the current versions, you depend a lot on the people around you.
You have to. I mean, think about that. Think about the telepresence robot functioning independently in the office. It's just moving along on itself, and I need to go up to the third floor. I've got my hand. I push the button in the elevator. I get on the elevator. And of course, there's no Wi-Fi in the elevator, so right.
Yeah,
so now I'm not there anymore, right? Now what happens? How do I ever get off the elevator? Yeah, I have to get on the phone, call somebody, and say, "Hey, could you get my telepresence robot off that elevator so I can come back to work?" That'd
be terrible.
That would be bad. So those are the kinds of kinks they have to work out.
You have to have some redundancy, things like cellular backup. Even that fails sometimes in various places. You just have to. I don't know. It's just like you say. It's just a lot of imperfections to work.
Probably what you will need is some independent processing going on in the unit. That if it loses contact, it can maybe have enough intelligence to figure out the situation it's in and try to get back onto the Wi-Fi network or something like that. In fact, in one of the articles, I think the second of the two that we'll be linking to, they talk about the fact that they're trying to build in a lot more awareness into the robots themselves, into the units themselves, about people's personal space, and that the units themselves are being built with sensors so that they're looking out for things not to run into them, so that even if you're not a particularly good driver of a telepresence robot, the telepresence robot itself might take on some of the aspects of a self-driving car, might you might be doing less of the driving than you think you are when you're moving your telepresence robot around, and that would all be to the good if it keeps it from being an irritation to the people who are around, because that's the last thing you want your presence to be ever, whether it's your actual real presence or your virtual presence or your telepresence. You don't want to irritate people, right? I mean, you wouldn't even bother showing up if it was just going to annoy people or make them dislike you. Depending, sometimes you have things you need to do, but
Well, I note the particular telepresence robot that was in the article that you shared with me. The article's title I thought was pretty funny. It was the new, more awkward you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess there's something to be said about that. That particular telepresence robot, the screen is so tiny, I don't think it really puts you there. I don't think
Yeah.
people would take that quite as seriously as a screen like what we saw in Big Bang Theory. A much bigger. I would want a much bigger screen on my telepresence robot, just so that people could see my expressions more easily. And I'd want the thing to be taller too. That's what's about a 4.5 foot tall little thing, and so you're gazing at everybody's belly button when you're
Right, right.
when you're
It
going down
seems
the
to me
hall.
they need to get it up to 5.5 feet or taller,
That's right.
and that
You're
monitor.
looking eye to eye with people when you're there.
To the extent that it's possible, looking eye to eye, and that monitor needs to present your face at least 40% of the size of your actual face, something like that.
Something like that.
Big enough. I mean, a psychologist could tell you what the actual number is, but something that would allow them to have the willing suspension of disbelief that that's your face and that you're there. Not that anyone's ever going to actually think that that's what's going on, but that dynamic can set in, right? Because if you're just looking at that tiny little screen, it's more like you're just talking to this. It's more like you're having a Skype call with the moving computer.
Yeah, it's a moving
Yeah.
Skype call.
Yeah.
And it's less that you've got a person there you're dealing with.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's in future versions. I think that they'll find that in order for that, like you say, that dynamic to kick in, it's going to have to be a little bit taller, and it's going to have a screen size that's bigger, so that you're really more there in the room. So,
Right. One of the things that's interesting about this is they talk about future generations. We know that this technology will get better. That eventually, unless it's completely replaced by something else, eventually there will be very natural looking, very human looking presences that can take our place. And the paradox there is that the closer the telepresence robot get to providing a true human interaction, the closer you get to what they call the uncanny valley, which is off-putting for a completely different set of reasons. So there's this fine balance, this fine line you have to walk between being off-putting because it's nothing like a human interaction, and then being off-putting because it's too close to a human interaction. Right now they're way over on the other side, but
Right.
in the near future, that other problem might start to emerge, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Phil, there's actually an analog to other technology that you've posted on Facebook recently. You showed a person that was a paraplegic getting into a machine that allowed them to stand up and move around a room, and it's the title of that article, I believe, was the wheelchair has been made obsolete. Well,
Right, right. Maybe.
probably not, but yeah, it's certainly this is certainly a step in the right direction. Sorry about that, but it is. And
By the way, that device is called the TEK, the Tech Mobilization Device, for those.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about that on Friday's show, as a matter of fact. We're going to mention
that's right.
Yeah.
And so it allows people that are in wheelchairs to stand up, move around, and it's and you said in your post, well, this is probably not as high tech, of course, as an exoskeleton,
Right.
which allows you to actually walk, but maybe it's more practical. I think that it's similar to what you'll see in telepresence robots. Obviously, telepresence robots will get better, and you could have like a telepresence robot walking around. But I think that we will find that that level of expense may not be necessary. That just having a telepresence robot wheeled around with a footprint that's similar to the footprint of a human being as far as the wheelbase will be just fine, and that we won't need exoskeletons or really in that case an actual android walking around. I think
Yeah, I don't think so
telepresence
either.
robot with a single hand, single arm might be good enough.
I think if the display is a little more wraparound, and so
Yeah.
there's a like a dimensionality to the face, it's not just a flat projection of the face, maybe that'll help. But
And let's say I'm sitting at my desk, here in Shreveport, and I've got I've got kind of wraparound monitors, okay,
mhm,
where I can look, and I've got maybe multiple cameras looking at different directions on the telepresence robot. I think that would help a lot.
yeah,
It puts me more there, and I think it would allow, it would tend to guard against things like bumping into people, and it would allow me to see multiple people if like you say, more it's a more wraparound kind of situation.
right,
So
right.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about our 7 transformations and how telepresence maps to those. As I see it, it maps to 3 of them. The first one it maps to is Fantasy Island, which is our coming ability to create any subjective experience that we want to have. With a telepresence robot, you can have the subjective experience of being someplace that you haven't actually gone to. So that's a whole new way to interact with the physical world for those of us who haven't done it. And also, other people can have the subjective experience of having you around, even though you're not there.
Right.
So this is definitely a technology that is playing on our subjective perceptions. If subjective perceptions of presence didn't matter, Skype would be enough. No one would ever talk about a telepresence robot, but somehow the idea of taking it up one additional step and putting a kind of a placeholder presence for that person, and giving you a kind of a placeholder experience of being there. This is not full immersion VR, and this is not that you'll go away from it actually thinking you were there, and other people won't think you were there, but you have a piece of that experience. So I think Fantasy Island applies. Also, the ultimate shortcut. This is the final transformation, the one where we can manifest any physical reality directly through thought. This doesn't get us anywhere near that, but it gets us a tad closer than we are, because by cutting out physical distance and travel time, telepresence brings us closer to simply thinking ourselves from place to place. We're still not thinking ourselves from place to place, but we're a lot closer to it than we were 150 years ago. If you show this technology to somebody even 50 years ago, they would think, "Wow, that's like magical technology that allows people to magically go from place to," maybe 100 years ago, to get to have them think it's magic. And then finally, your personal favorite transformation. In the future, everything will be a coffee shop. See, I don't see the telepresence robot as being an example of eliminating infrastructure, which is what coffee shopification is all about. It's actually a new kind of infrastructure that gets introduced, but it enables eliminating former physical requirements, which is kind of the same thing. So the physical requirement of physical presence gets reduced or eliminated, and physical barriers that existed between people, distance in this case, is eliminated. So I think there's a real relationship between the coffee shopification transformation and what's happening with telepresence. What do you think, Stephen?
Well, I agree that normally coffee shopification is about the elimination of infrastructure, but in this case, we have new infrastructure that supports coffee shopification. Allows you to be, wherever you need to be, and in the world from wherever you want to be, which might be your favorite coffee shop, or it might be your den, or
Right.
your home office, or whatever. And so I would say yes, it's a new piece of infrastructure, and normally, infrastructure is sort of the enemy of coffee shopification, because infrastructure is something that's costly, that it would normally require you to be in a certain place, like an office, so you could use a printer or something like that, whatever the infrastructure it is that you're talking about.
Right.
But here, this is exactly the opposite. It's a piece of infrastructure that allows you to be wherever you want to be or need
Right.
to be.
And in
And
that
so,
case, when you think about it, it's really right in line with coffee shopification, isn't it? Because I
yeah,
mean, that's what we talk about. It's not so much, I shouldn't say elimination of infrastructure. It is the elimination of dedicated infrastructure. It's the elimination of saying this building here is our office. It's
yeah,
our
you have to
headquarters where
be,
we
you have to be in this building
Right.
because
Right.
This is where all our stuff is that we have to use
Right.
to get the job done. Well,
And instead we have new infrastructure, which is Starbucks or whatever,
right.
which we use in place of that. And this really is very much in line with that, isn't it?
That is, and so, yeah, it would tend to support that. Something we haven't mentioned, and I think we need to mention in any show that mentions a telepresence robot. It's a big deal for any company that's concerned about their green image. Okay,
Right.
if you're flying your representatives all over the country to just attend a meeting and then fly home, that's a huge carbon footprint. And if you're at all concerned about that, then you can maybe eliminate some of those trips back and forth, and it might even be a plus in that, yeah, I'm halfway across the country this minute, but now I'm back here at my regular
Right.
desk the very next minute because I just turned off the telepresence robot. So
And think about that in terms of cost savings for one thing. I mean,
oh
you
yeah,
buy the telepresence robot once and you save, if it really works, all those airline tickets in the future. It's not just the carbon footprint, but it's all the money you spend on flying and all the time.
you know what I think that there is a huge business opportunity for anybody that wants to build telepresence robots. You could do so much cheaper than the telepresence robots that I'm seeing here. The one mentioned in this article, a new, more awkward you, I think it's like $5,000 for the robot plus a $1,500 one-time service charge or something. Or to me, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a Wi-Fi camera, a microphone, a video monitor, and an RC car
Yeah.
linked together.
Yep.
I mean, and it's a little
And
bit
some
more to it.
smarts that hooks it all together.
And
That's
some
right.
smarts that make these
Yep.
things work together.
Yep.
Okay, so why does that cost $5,000? It shouldn't. It should cost $500, and I suspect it will shortly. You just have to. 500 may be a little. I may be pushing it a little bit, but
The point is, you get the strike price down to 500. When you can go to a business and say, "Listen, buy this for 500. Buy this for the cost of one airline ticket."
one airline ticket,
Right.
And I think all of a sudden you'll see them everywhere.
Right.
And, but right now I haven't. I've personally not seen one in my professional life. Phil, have you encountered a telepresence robot yet?
I have not. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope to. I hope to get to use one sometime. I think it would be tremendous fun to.
It's much business travel as you've been doing. I suspect of us two, it's probably likely that you'll actually use one before I will, and so I'm looking forward to hearing a report on that.
If it were an option, I would definitely try it. If it were an option, I would definitely try it. Anything to avoid being in airports and sitting on planes. I think if you can actually cut that out of a person's life, wow. It's great when you're going on a trip that you really want to go on. And not to say that you don't really want to go on business trips, but oftentimes you reach the point where if there was an alternative way of achieving the business outcomes without having to be on that plane, man, you would do it. Whatever that thing would be, you would probably do it. I speak for myself. Maybe some people still really enjoy business travel.
Well, yeah, business traveling can be fun, I'm sure, if it's not taken to extreme. I have a cousin who, fortunately for him, it's not like this anymore for him in his professional life. But there was a time when he spent more time on the road than at home,
Yeah.
and I mean, he would wake up in a strange hotel room, and it would take he'd be disoriented, and it'd take him a few minutes to even remember, okay, where am I? I mean, he says it was a brutal life, and
I'm sure.
and he's very glad to to have a more stable working situation in one particular town now. So,
Okay, so with
yeah.
less than a minute
he would
remaining.
he would have loved this.
Less than a minute remaining. Let's just say quickly, what's the future of this? I don't think, as you said, I don't think we'll see true humanoid robots. Eventually, really high tech, we might see something like nano swarm technology that allows us to have a much richer, truer experience of presence, but not for a long time. That's a far future kind of implementation. In the meantime, we're going to see things like drones, which we don't think of as telepresence robots, but which are in their own way. Robot soldiers. We've talked about robot medics, robot doctors, robot police officers, robot firefighters, and
surgeons, and I think that could be
robot what? I'm sorry, I missed you.
robot surgeons.
Exactly.
You could have the world's greatest brain surgeon operating all over the country with surgical robots.
Yeah,
And
Yeah, and I think we will. I think we'll be encountering these robots, maybe not so much in the office, maybe in other settings before we know it. So it's an interesting set of future developments, one that we'll be keeping a close eye on over the next few years. Something to look forward to, and be a little concerned about, I suppose.
Maybe.
All right, and with that, I think that does it for this program. Thank you all for being with us, and until next time, live to see it.